Recently unveiled Epstein files now prove that Steve Bannon was working on a documentary to essentially paint Jeffrey Epstein in a positive light up until the exact day the pedophile was arrested in 2019. Not a good look. Now remember, we've talked about the fact that Steve Bannon had hours and hours of interview footage with Epstein that for whatever reason he hasn't released. And it appears that the interviews he was doing with Epstein really had to do with a Netflix documentary that was, again, supposed to paint Epstein in a very positive light. So let me give you some more details on that. This revelation, by the way, has led to members of Bannon's audience expressing absolute rage over his relationship with Epstein. And so we're gonna get to their comments and their concerns in just a moment. And I think it's important to hear from them. But first, let's talk about the Epstein documentary itself. So in late 2018, Netflix began producing their own documentary about Jeffrey Epstein. Now, around that same time, the Miami Herald, if you can remember, was working on publishing exposés on Epstein's crimes and, more importantly, how he was protected by our institutions, or at least members within our institutions. Remember, he got that sweetheart deal in the early aughts, which allowed him to leave prison and essentially get like a slap on the wrist, especially when you take into consideration the predatory, disgusting, abusive behavior that he was engaging in. Now, Epstein and Bannon started to put together a PR counter-offensive to the Netflix documentary. Okay, so per The Guardian, by April, the two were apparently planning a film production that would redeem Epstein's reputation. On April 30th, Epstein wrote, "The Christians I met will feel the media portraying me as beyond redemption is deeply troubling and offensive." I'm gonna venture to say that we have plenty of Christians watching this show right now. You guys write in and tell me, is Epstein the kind of guy who should be considered beyond redemption, considering the fact that he sexually abused, many young girls and got away with it for a very long time? I mean, it's interesting how he was planning to use religion as a way to manipulate the American people in order to see him in some sort of positive light, when, make no mistake about it, this guy was a predator. So there's more. Bannon responded to that saying, yes, of course, but we must counter rapist who traffics in female children to be raped by world's most powerful, richest men. That can't be redeemed. Well, at least Bannon was right about that. Now, there's more. Can't redeem unredeemable. You are a lot of things, which we will show, but you are not that. So basically, Steve Bannon here is trying to make a point about, look, if we allow the actual reality to set in about who you really are, that's a problem. So we need to kind of manipulate the situation so you are not presented, or people question the fact that you are presented as this, person who preys on female children. And so Bannon reportedly filmed 15 hours of interview footage featuring Jeffrey Epstein for this documentary that never came out. And he and Bannon were communicating on the very day that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019. Bannon wrote, "If we arrange it, can we film on the island?" And of course, he was referring to Little St. James. Epstein agreed, by the way. Later, Bannon asked the following: "Can we do late morning, say 11 a.m.? Epstein replied, "All canceled." Minutes later, Epstein was arrested. So the real question is, when is Bannon gonna release all that footage, the interview that he was essentially coordinating with Epstein on, specifically to help him counter the narrative that he was in fact a pedophile who was essentially abusing countless young girls and getting away with it? I mean, I think the release of the Epstein files obviously is incredibly important. And from what we've already seen released, I mean, there have been some massive revelations, many of which, by the way, our corporate media has decided to completely ignore. Anything that ties Jeffrey Epstein to the Israeli government or prominent members of the Israeli government is completely ignored, neglected by our corporate media. Now, this has to do with Steve Bannon, so suddenly there seems to be a little more interest in what the revelations of these files happen to be. If you frame it in a partisan political perspective, all of a sudden corporate media is interested. And I want to make clear, as I have previously, I don't care about the partisan angle to this because there are bad actors on both sides, as our coverage of this has made pretty clear. Now, let's talk a little bit about Bannon's audience, because as we learn more about Steve Bannon's relationship with Epstein, members of Bannon's own audience, to their credit, are turning on him. They're being incredibly critical of him, and it shows that these are individuals who actually are motivated by their own principles, their own values. They're not in a cult. And again, I commend them for that. So Media Matters for America compiled an enormous list of commenters giving Bannon a piece of their mind. And I want to give you a few examples of that with their names redacted. So Steve advising Epstein how to sugarcoat his depravities. I've been watching Steve for 6 hours per day since 2020. I'm so done with the MAGA whisperer. Hypocrisy is not only Democrats' disease. So now that the mask is off, I hope that those who supported Bannon, even as he stole money, allegedly, from individuals who were donating to a phony fundraising effort that he put together to build the border wall, realize, no, we weren't lying to you, okay? The charges that he was facing are serious charges. He stole from the very people who believed in him, who trusted in him, who actually thought he was serious about building that border wall. He took that money and, according to the allegations, just put it in his pocket. He stole from his own supporters. And there's nothing more scummy than that. Well, there is actually, helping a predator who rapes young girls to clean up his image and launch a counter narrative to an upcoming Netflix documentary that paints him in a more accurate light. Let's go to some more of the comments from Steve Bannon's, I guess, former supporters. So one other person writes, "Release your Epstein footage, Bannon. I'm disappointed in you, man. I feel like you lied to us. I was a fan and follower, and now I don't think I can trust you anymore." There's nothing more valuable than trust, knowing that your audience trusts you, and to just brazenly lie to people or to present yourself in a way that is so deceptive, especially in regard to your own moral character, you're eventually gonna get caught. All things dark come to light, but there's more. One other person writes, "Republican Party is dead thanks to Trump. WTF has he accomplished for the people? He's Israel first, not America first. The economy is no better than Biden's economy. I'm done with voting because it's not for the people, just the corrupt Israel bought neocons. Bannon, you're a piece of you know what. He was Epstein's PR guy. What a liar, no different than Trump. Sad how this country has been sold to Israel." So when you have a groundswell of support from American voters on the right, independents, I mean, when you think about the broad coalition that allowed President Donald Trump to win in 2024 with the popular vote, well, obviously that coalition is fragile. And what appealed to these individuals was this claim that, no, we really need to put America first. But what is now kind of coming out in regard to what the real agenda is for the Trump administration and what the real priorities have been for various individuals in Trump's circle, it's just obvious that it's not about taking care of the American people first. Why would you feel this need to sign up to help Epstein launch a counter narrative to a documentary that's coming out? And look, the other thing is, I don't believe Bannon when he's critical of Israel. I just don't. I think he sees that there's a sizable portion of Republican voters, conservative voters, especially when it comes to younger conservative voters. He sees how they feel about Israel and he talks the talk, but behind the scenes, make no mistake about it. I mean, Bannon has been and always will be a hardcore Zionist. What happened that made him change his mind? And if he's really America first, why would he allegedly steal the money that was donated to his fundraising campaign to build the Southern Wall, which, as we all know, MAGA cares about deeply? So one of the comments that I read was from a, I guess now former Bannon supporter who says, I don't even want to vote anymore. Don't do that. That's exactly what people want. That's what people in positions of power want. The real question is, moving forward, are American voters gonna do a better job identifying the con men? Because make no mistake, there are tons of con men and women who want power. They want to accumulate power, not to make this country better, but to enrich themselves. And so don't fall prey to the way corporate media covers the horse race. The nonsense, partisan framing oftentimes will blind you to the real vulnerabilities of these politicians and what their actual agendas happen to be. And when you kind of see things outside of a partisan lens and you're able to judge the candidates on a case-by-case basis, look at their records, see whether or not you can confirm the claims they're making about themselves and their records, that's gonna lead you to the right direction, in my opinion. At least it did with me when it came to Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi Gabbard, if you guys can remember, presented herself as like this hardcore progressive. I just looked at her record and her record did not bear that out at all. And so I got a lot of hate for being one of the first who pointed to her record and said, hey, you know what, just be a little careful about how she's presenting herself. I don't really think this is the identity that you can see from her past and what she's voted on, how she's voted and how she's commented on things like torture, for instance, which prior to running for president, she was on the record defending torture. So pay close attention because these people want to lie to you because they want positions of power. Unfortunately, the way our political system works, it does not incentivize truth tellers. It incentivizes basically telling the American people exactly what they want to hear and then pulling the rug out from underneath them as soon as they are able to win these positions of power. So we'll see how this develops, but we can kind of understand now why so many powerful people didn't want the Epstein files to be released.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.